Hi everybody, I'm Brent Beltman with Beltman Woodworking and Designs. Today, we're looking at how to build this router jig by Nick Ferry. This is a highly adaptable jig that can be built out of any scrap wood from your shop. So let's take a look at how to build it.
Alright, I first started by cutting the runner for the jig and cut it right at 1/4 of an inch. And then I made sure to make sure it fit for my actual router. So I cut a pre-groove in another slot and checked it out. Once I had that set, I glued it in place, and then I followed Nick Ferry's instructions, which was to put the jig on a straight edge and use that to cut the straight edge for the router. Once I had that straight edge, I put that up against the fence and cut straight edges there. And from there I cut the ends to be flush and then measured it to make sure it would be the length I needed it. And then after that, I made sure to cut extra shims for the pieces that would fit all around the router. Now at this point too, I made sure to actually cut some extra support pieces that would hold the whole router jig to place when everything was all said and done. Now one thing I will say is make sure and use wax paper. Nick Ferry said to do that. I did not do it the first time and glued my whole jig down to another piece of wood. So make sure you use scrap paper when assembling your jig and gluing everything all together. And for me, I just used CA glue with activator to make sure everything would fit together just right, because I didn't want to wait for the wood glue to dry, so I made sure to do that. Again, using that wax paper. And of course, make sure when you're assembling this jig that everything is as snug as possible. You definitely don't want that router moving around on you when you're using it to cut your final piece. So here the jig is basically complete minus the supports. Already glued one down, so I glued the other in place, and that's what's going to make the whole jig strong. So I suggest also adding that to your jig as well.
This is our completed router jig by Nick Ferry, and what's great is I was able to use this jig on this project, which will be in my next upcoming video. This is a tie chest that I'm building, but I'll post a link to that video when it's up online as well. Now this router jig, one thing to mention is I made it where it was both the same distance in the front and the back, which allows me to be able to use it to make long passes with the router here, but I can also use the front edge for small passes, which is what I did on this project. So thanks again Nick Ferry for the awesome video and awesome router jig. That's why I had to make it, because after I saw your video I thought it was so awesome. So hopefully this inspires you for your next project. So until next time, be inspired, keep learning, keep building.